So, I would like to review the Sidney Poitier film, The Defiant Ones, 1958. And this stars also the legendary Spencer Tracy, who was in a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies. And he was also in Some Like It Hot. So, again, like with Sidney Poitier, that Spencer Tracy was another actor who did a lot of controversial films, like in Some Like It Hot. Spencer Tracy played a drag queen, and he lost a lot of popularity after that film. The same way Sidney Poitier lost a lot of popularity after playing a very progressive character in The Heat of the Night. So this is both when these actors were were in a bit of their primes, and the Defiance ones is about like Spencer Tracy, who plays the character Joker, and Sidney Poitier, who plays character Noah. And what happens in the film is that these are two convicts who are chained together. They're being moved to another prison, and there is a car accident. So they end up escaping, and it's about them being running from the law, and just a lot of just the things they deal with. Because obviously this film was in 1958, and this was also based on a book. No, I meant an original script. So there was a sense of, so it was definitely like a huge social commentary, and I think that's why this piece is really great. And also, this was a very well made movie in its writing, and its acting, and its cinematography. So like there was a lot of social commentary, because the big thing about the movie is that Spencer Tracy is white and Sidney Poitier is black. So them being chained together, and them just kind of saying like, oh, how are people going to react when they get caught, or how they're going to deal with their situation because of racial issues. And I think what Joker, who is Spencer Tracy's character, always talked about is that the reason why I see you as a nigger, or call you that word, or think a certain way about you, is because that's just the way the world is. And I like his reasoning for saying that, because obviously back in the 1950s, people had a very racist attitude, and some people were just kind of brought up with that mentality of, we always look down at other races, because that's just how it was for the longest time. And I also like how that in one scene, somebody helps them get away, who is a former con, and this former con does a couple of things. They want to lynch both the people, but they also were thinking about lynching Sidney Poitier's character more so. And this con was like, do you want to lynch him? Do you want to burn them? Do you want to get an axe and cut them into pieces? So I think what he was trying to like insinuate is that that there are people like who do lynch mobs and other things like that to prisoners or cons, and that's not really good, because it's almost like like cruel and unusual punishment, and then also just like barbarism. And people just like really believed in that back then, is that if there are cons escaping, you have every right to kind of just be a monster too. So it was interesting, like social commentary on like the prison system, or how people see criminals. Like some people just think that because they were cons escaping jail, and they get caught in a store just vandalizing some property, and they assault somebody, that they're worth being killed, mutilated and killed. And then when this person helps them get away, it's kind of revealed that this guy was also a con as well. So sometimes it's a good like thought process of how when you go to prison, you lose the right to vote and other things like that. So sometimes, what happens is that there's a lot of people who are like, well, we should always be punishing prisoners and treat them badly or take away their rights, because when prisoners lose their right to vote, they can't really say, I've been through the system and I know what it's like. So I think it was a good allegory for how almost like prisoners can understand what other prisoners go through, and what happened, and how a lot of times people decide fates of prisoners, when sometimes the punishment is like cruel, or sometimes people just see them as people that deserve to be destroyed, when sometimes they do something bad, and that's not always the right punishment for them. And it's also interesting too, because Joker went to jail because he was like a big thief, And then he was also saying like how there are more successful thieves, and usually they are the politicians or the people who are super corrupt, who steal large amounts of things. And then Noah is in jail because what happened was there was a person who went onto his property who was white. He assaulted him, and then he was like charged with assault with intention to kill. So it was another example of obviously race playing a huge issue. So it's so when they talk about like how so when that scene the mob when people were talking about wanting to kill them, and then a prisoner kind of is like, you know what, we're not going to do that tonight because it's almost like the punishment doesn't fit the crime in a sense. So it was good social commentary on the prison system. Later in the film, Spencer Tracy's character meets a woman, and this woman wants to have a relationship with him because she's lonely. Her husband walked out. She's trying to cling on to a man to kind of just live happily ever after, and that was also good social commentary because it was a little bit about the idea of how some people are like that. They want to have relationships, just live happily ever after, and they're willing to throw people under the bus, or they're willing to kind of cling to people that they don't know, or have like a fake relationship. I'm just with you because I think that's gonna make me live happily ever after when that really doesn't. It's finding escapism, and so I think that this film does a lot of different types of social commentary very well. And I would also kind of say as the last thing is that I believe it was James Baldwin and Melvin Von Peebles, I'm Not Your Negro and Classified X. They were talking about like how they didn't like this film because they felt the ending reinforced racism, because they said like in the last scene of the film, Sidney Poitier tries to help Spencer Tracy's character get on a train, and then he had an advantage to like be like, okay, well, you're not gonna make it, so I'm going to let you just let you go, let you get caught, and and save myself. But what they're both talking about is like Hollywood racism had it so Sidney Poitier would fall off the train as well. So it's almost like saying that no matter the racism that this guy did or whatever, it was a big like metaphor for saying that black people will always like kind of have some understanding, or will be or will do what's best for white people, or just be like, okay, if there's a situation that they can benefit, they will care more about the white benefit than their own benefit. And I think that's really interesting when you look at this film. And I think I kind of see a bit of that, but I think that when you look at the whole movie, these are just two people who just don't get along. They saw their race as a huge barrier in the world that they live in, and in the end, they kind of form a friendship because they've been through a lot. And also Spencer Tracy's character at the very end, like he found out that this woman was misleading Sidney Poitier's character into a dangerous wilderness, so he made the choice to save him. So in both cases, they did a lot of just looking out for themselves and then saving themselves at the very end. But saving each other at the very, very end. And I also want to say that, outside all the social commentary, this won Best Cinematography, Black and White, and then also Best Screenplay Writing. And it rightfully so deserves both awards. The cinematography is very amazing. It reminded me a lot of The Night of the Hunter, where they did a lot of like good wilderness shots, a lot of like pans, a lot of like staging, because there's some scenes where they're rolling down a hill and Sidney Poitier ends up in front of the camera and other things like that. A lot of great landscape shots. It made me think of like Vermont, like with the mountains in the background and the clouds. Like they did a really good job with the cinematography. And I also think that sometimes there's people like and especially back then, there's a lot of films nowadays like The Revenant, where it feels like a cinematography porn, where it's just too flashy. But this movie really just cares about making everything work for the story. So the cinematography for Black and White was done very well. And Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. And outside of the really great acting, I think that Spencer Tracy, he did a lot better acting than Sidney Poitier, because I think like the scene where he is talking to this woman, and they're both trying to like have a romance with each other, because he's missing his wife, she's missing like a man in her life because the husband walked out, and things like that, like that, just both missing but wanting each other. And then at the very end, he kind of realizes that she has issues. Um, the acting was done very well. And there were both more so Spencer Tracy's character was very, very very dimensional, and I really just appreciate that. And that's hard to do in a lot of films. Like sometimes it's very easy to make a one dimensional character, just having one emotion through the whole thing, or just like one like mindset. And Sidney Poitier, he does that within this film, where like his mindset really is that he wants to escape and do the best that he can in his situation. And if Joker is going to be his friend, he's going to be his friend. If Joker wants to, be an asshole, he's going to respond to that. But Spencer Tracy, he did play a person that was really just, understanding racism, then understanding friendship, then understanding, like wanting to be with this woman, and then understanding that she had problems, and then kind of understanding that, because Noah helped him and saved his life a couple of times, and other things like that. And Noah also knew the wilderness and other things very well, that he would have gotten that far. So there was a sense of like kinship. And that usually happens to people who go through hard things, or sometimes they both go to prison. And then sometimes, if there's a level of honesty, they kind of say, okay, well, what are you in for? And then they both kind of realize, oh, well, maybe the punishment doesn't fit the crime, or maybe the crime has a lot of embellishment. So it's an interesting film. Great cinematography. The last thing I want to say is that they did a really good job with the other characters, because like they are being chased by police officers and dogs and everything like that, and the people like who have the dog, like the owner of the dogs and the cops. There is some comic relief, so it kind of went from this really serious racial and social commentary to some comic relief, but they did it in the way where they kind of almost like it was like a cutaway, like what's going on with these cops, and what's going on with Spencer Tracy and Sidney Poitier. And they do it in such a way where it doesn't feel too juxtaposing, or it doesn't feel like you have something super serious and you start with something super funny, so it feels like you're throwing the seriousness under the bus. They did enough like light humor to kind of make the dark parts more palatable, but also not to a point where it just feels too too high and low. It had a lot of emotional it had a lot of like good emotional pacing, and just if they're gonna focus on something funny or comic relief, they do it in a way where they're not throwing the serious stuff under the bus, or it doesn't feel distracting, or it doesn't feel like they're trying to change the mood too much. So overall, this was a very great, well-made film, and one of the best films ever made. I think one of the, I'm not sure if it's in the top 10, I'm not sure if it's in the top 100 greatest American films, but I would say in the top like 200 or 300, if they made a list of that, obviously it would be on there. And this is one of the best films of the 1950s as well. So I would recommend the Defiant one. It's definitely a very interesting film to look at. Very great social commentary, and it's also interesting if you kind of want to make the argument if this film is or isn't racist.